What's up, everybody? It's Aslan. It's a cold open. Remember what the cold open is, everybody? We're just going to get right to it. So Corey and I knocked down an entire show, strong show, about an entire hour, talking about lots of things relevant to Florida State. But after we got done, news broke that it seems like Florida State is expected to have Patrick Surtain be their next defensive backs coach. Now, this is a longtime NFL veteran. He was coaching with the Miami Dolphins this past season. I mean, I think he still is. The Dolphins are in the playoffs. Shout out, Fins fans. Shout out, James B. Coach at American Heritage High School, won a bunch of state championships. Mike Norvell even pretty much hinted that it's happening, but it's not official. We expect that to happen probably later today, Wednesday. So anyhow, we did the show. Ira and I talked about it for YouTube. Not all of you listen to us on YouTube, so we're going to start off now with Ira pretty much breaking down this hire, what it means, and then Corey and I will take over and do an entire show how we usually do. So with that said, here's Ira and I talking about the presumptive hire of Patrick Surtain. Ira, thanks for being here. The big news for Florida State today was going to the transfer portal and picking up another piece of the puzzle on the defensive side of things. And now it sounds like defensively there was a piece to fill the coaching staff, and it looks like maybe they've got that handled now as well, as we've heard some reports here on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, Pete Thamel from ESPN was the first to report it, that Florida State's found their new defensive backs coach, Patrick Surtain, and Mike Norvell, within minutes, tweeted a vague tweet, saying something along the lines of "Coach him up. It's a great day to be a Seminole." There you go. You can see the tweet up on the screen right there, basically confirming it. And what we were told is that Florida State probably is expected to announce it tomorrow. A lot of times when these deals are done, the parties involved can announce it, but the school won't officially announce it until they finish all their paperwork on the back end from an HR standpoint. So we expect that to happen maybe as soon as tomorrow. But yeah, Patrick Surtain is going to be Florida State's next defensive backs coach. It's a big name. It's probably a really positive hire for a lot of reasons. But it's another sign of how committed Florida State is to this football team and this football season.
I just can't imagine what it's like to be a Miami or a Florida fan, and Florida State goes in the portal and just keeps getting every single dude they want, every single dude that LSU seems to want or Southern Cal wants. Then you've got to patch up something on the back end of your defense in terms of a coach, and then you go get what sounds like expected. We're hearing probably on Wednesday, Patrick Surtain, a dude here, as you see on your screen, Ira, a guy that's been in the NFL for over 10 years as a player. Most recently, wasn't a defensive assistant here for the Dolphins this past season. And then obviously some really good roots down there in South Florida as being a head coach and winning some state titles there. So this on the field, off the field, just seems like a really good sort of fit for what Florida State's trying to get done here and take the next step.
Yeah, no question. I think the only question I guess people might have is the fact that he hasn't been a college defensive backs coach. But, look, I mean, I think he's so off. He's off the charts in so many other areas. The fact that, like you said, not only is he played for the Miami Dolphins for a long time, so he's really prominent in South Florida, but he coached at American Heritage, which is, a perennial state power. He led him to 3 state championships, had blue chipper after blue chipper after blue chipper, and has always had a good relationship with Florida State. If you remember when his son, Patrick Surtain II, was coming out of high school, he was, one of the top players in the country. Florida State was very involved in that recruiting process, and they weren't able to land him. But he was certainly not opposed to Florida State. I think he had a good relationship with Florida State through that process. And if you think about from a recruiting standpoint, a lot's been made about the first coaching staff Mike Norvell put together didn't have a lot of South Florida roots on it. Now they've done fine down there, and part of it's because they've added some support staff with connections down there. And that's gone a long way. But I think this is a really big hire for Florida State from the connection standpoint. But also, when you go back to that expertise as a coach, I mean, he has coached. He's coached, very elite high school football players, and he's spent this year with the Dolphins. So I don't think the learning curve to being a defensive backs coach in the college level is going to be very steep for Pat Surtain.
What does this show or demonstrate about this program right now, Ira? Again, I mean, he's a defensive backs coach for Florida State University. We're expecting to hear. I mean, this is not necessarily a defensive coordinator, but it's hard to think that this wouldn't be a really good fit in terms of his knowledge, his sort of background, be able to show kids, hey, man, I was in the league. I was a 3-time Pro Bowler. The way he can recruit. I mean, when Florida State's able to lose a guy like Marcus Woods and he goes to Arkansas, and then you fill him with a guy that might have NFL aspirations, like true NFL aspirations? What does it show about maybe where this program is going and the kind of cachet that maybe Mike Norvell has quickly developed?
Yeah, I think it's a continuation of what we've seen really for the last year. When at the end of 2021, going into 2022, Florida State made a much bigger commitment from an administration standpoint into support staff salaries, in terms of salaries in terms of new positions on the support staff, expanded the staff, scouting staff, recruiting staff, really put a lot of money into the season. And then you have this success of a 10-3 season. And much like when we had the conversation last week in a video that we did that people can still find on Warchant, our YouTube page, about Mike Norvell's contract and his extension, I don't feel like Florida State's going to skimp on that. Just like I didn't think they were going to skimp on this position, because they're all in. I mean, they see the window of opportunity here for this football team. Certainly in 2023, where we've seen reports that they're early polls where they may be a top 5 team in the country going into the next season. But also for the future. I mean, if Florida State's all in, they want to, there was a perception that Florida State was trying to do things on the cheap for a while. And whether or not that was true, that's certainly not the case anymore. I don't know. We don't know the figures yet on Pat Surtain's contract. But I don't think it was somebody it wasn't like you went out on the cheap to hire him. They did I'm sure they did a really thorough search, and it seems like a home run from every category you could look at from my perspective, in terms of knowledge, in terms of name recognition, in terms of recruiting ability, and the fact those connections in South Florida. It just feels like they really hit a home run.
Yeah, man. Again, just to give you guys a look once again, Surtain, 11-year NFL veteran, 3-time Pro Bowler, again, head football coach down at American Heritage High School. I think he was actually an assistant there a few years prior to that too, Ira. So he's earned his stripes. Man, this isn't a guy that's just kind of fallen into jobs just because of his last name and what he did on Sundays. But again, just kind of, I don't want the other shoe to fall, Ira. Is the other shoe going to fall, or is this kind of just like maybe what the new normal is right now? Florida State fans need to embrace it.
Well, I think, when you get inertia going, I think it all kind of feeds on itself, and I think this program is probably attractive to him because of, the talent they've recruited, the fact that you brought in a Fentrell Cypress out of the transfer portal, the number 2 cornerback, possibly that was available in the transfer portal, maybe number 1 in some people's eyes, an all ACC caliber cornerback you went out and got out of the transfer portal from Virginia, who's going to be in your secondary next year. You've got some really nice young talent in that secondary. So if Florida State didn't have a 10-3 season, if they weren't moving in the right direction, if they didn't have a lot of really promising talent on the roster, you probably couldn't make this hire. I think a year ago, if Marcus Woodson had left a year ago, I don't know that Florida State could have made this hire, but they're in a much better position now, and they're taking advantage of it.
I know you mentioned it a couple of times, Ira, but you talked about, this shows that the investment, that they're all in on this. Does this kind of lead you to believe that, they're going to have to probably pay a pretty good premium for Surtain, or at least maybe more than they were paying Marcus Woodson?
It's a good question. It really is going to depend on how much he could have made at other schools. If there was competition for him, if his agent, and I don't know who his agent is. Mike Norvell's agent is Jimmy Sexton. A lot of times in the coaching world, if both parties have Jimmy Sexton as their agent, it can kind of be a symbiotic relationship. A lot of times the head coach and sometimes the assistant coaches have the same agent. So I don't know who Pat Surtain is, but he's he definitely would have been marketable if he let people know that he was willing to go be a college assistant coach. I'm sure there were a lot of schools interested, and then that kind of depends on how much you have to pay. But it wasn't like Florida State was paying Marcus Woodson a cheap amount. I mean, he was well paid as a defensive backs coach, not one of the highest ones in the country, but well paid. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the same ballpark. But my point is, there were some names floated out there. I think initially people talked about some of the guys on the support staff. Florida State has some guys on the support staff that would have been easy transitions, and not, I don't know that they would have been interested, but, Corey Fuller, Kawan Ratliff, guys who are on the Florida State staff right now, Antonio Cromartie, former FSU star. That's been a GA at Texas A&M. A lot of those guys, I don't know if it could have commanded the same salary. To me, those would have been hires where maybe you're looking to be a little bit more economical.
Yeah. As you mentioned, just 2 drafts ago, you mentioned the fact that the amount of guys that he's developed when he was there at American Heritage. I mean, back in 2021, that draft, 6 players were drafted that played for him at Heritage. So good players, high-end players.
Right.
I didn't realize Brian Burns played there too. So Brian Burns counts on that too. He can take some credit for that. This good times. Good times recovering Florida State football. You deserve it. You had to go through a mess to get here. Maybe the best sort of a combination they've had on a defensive backs coach and a coordinator in quite some time. Also, do you think this maybe helps kind of quell a little bit of the concerns that fans have about the defense? Now, listen, they got Jared Verse coming back. They did get Braden Fisk out of the portal. You mentioned Fenchel Cypress. They got the young man out of Fort Pierce from South Carolina earlier on Tuesday, Gilbert Edmond. Is this another kind of piece for fans that maybe like, all right, this will be shored up and they're moving in the right direction, at least when it comes to defense, because we feel good about the offense.
Yeah, I think so. And Marcus Woodson was not a poor coach. It's not like he was doing a bad job. But I don't feel like there was a feeling that he was doing a tremendous job with Florida State's defensive backs. And again, when you talk to a guy like, the most prominent NFL defensive back that I've talked to a lot is Terrell Buckley, who's now coaching the XFL, is another name that people kind of were hoping the Florida State would look after, but he'll be head coach of the Orlando team in the XFL. But I talked to Terrell Buckley a lot, and he, you talk to him and Bryant McFadden, who played in the NFL for a long time, and they talk about the mental approach to playing cornerback at that level. And that's where a guy, certainly Antonio Cromartie and Corey Fuller, those guys that have that experience could bring it as well. But it's not just being a great athlete. There are, I would say, tricks of the trade, not just, techniques and different approaches, but the mental aspect, knowing what a quarterback's looking for, knowing what the receiver's going to do before he even runs it, before he even breaks out of his route. Those kinds of things. I think a guy like that can share that knowledge quickly with his players, and then they're going to believe it. Those guys, they may not have watched Patrick Surtain play in the NFL. I don't know, the age difference depends on when they started watching the NFL, but it's not hard it's not hard. It's not like you're having to dig up the black and white film to show him. And he was a very prominent player, and I'm sure they're going to buy into him quickly. So yeah, I think I think he'll, especially if he fits in well. I'm guessing again, Randy Shannon, another assistant coach on the defensive staff who's got strong South Florida ties, obviously was at UM for a long time. He's going to be very close to him. So, they're going to work well together. I just think there's a lot of reasons to think it would work well.
Yeah. Also the fact, he played at Southern Miss, so maybe he's a little Mississippi sort of inroads, and he's from New Orleans too. Right. So I'm sure him and Yak road trips, those two guys going to a high school in New Orleans.
I bet there's a lot of connections. on the staff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good sort of 1-2 punch there. So again, we expect to maybe have some official news on this Wednesday, but as you're watching us or listening to us, it's expected that Patrick Surtain will be the next defensive backs coach for Florida State, replacing Marcus Woodson, who is now at Arkansas. So there you go. Check out warchant.com throughout the evening and on Wednesday morning, and we'll be on top of it. Ira, as always, man, thanks for the time and the knowledge.
Thanks, Aslan. Talk soon.
From Tally to Cali,
it's time to wake up.
Wake up, wake up. Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One ball, corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill in Tallahassee, Florida. Coming up on today's show, the Heisman campaign has begun. Another one. Mike Norvell and the Noles going to the portal. And another one. Another way too early polls got the Noles really high. Wake Up Warchant is presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill in Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com. That is the website. You know that already, but you can always pull out your phone, open up your camera app, hit that QR code, takes you right to the website, and check out the daily lunch specials. But I will tell that to you now, folks. It is Wednesday. Pressed ham and Swiss. Grilled and caramelized ham, topped with melted Swiss, pressed and toasted. You get some horsey sauce and a pickle as well, as in addition to your choice of sides: straight fries, curly fries, onion rings, potato salad, broccoli, side salad, tater tots, or freshly cooked potato chips. Cannot go wrong at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Just because that's the lunch special doesn't mean you have to order the lunch special, but that's what the lunch special is. There's so many other things on the menu that you will find appetizing and appealing. I can guarantee it. Check it all out at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. And don't forget, tomorrow, bingo night over at the CP. Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Sign up. You get access, premium access, PRB. That's a premium recruiting board, which will have a recruiting chat live with Michael Langston at 6 p.m. on Wednesday evening. You can get access to all that sort of stuff for only $30 if you sign up right now, and that'll take you all the way up until September 1st. So do the math. The value is there. The longer you wait, the value not as good. Thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm talking too much, Corey. Save me here. How are you, Corey? You're here, right?
I'm good, buddy. I think we should mention it occasionally. Like we do with DeLuna, the CP is owned by a Nole. Bill is a Nole, went to school there in the late 80s, so he was there for the dynasty run. And it's good that he's a proprietor now that the Noles are back in business. I think he opened CP, I want to say 13, 14 years ago. And so he saw some good times, clearly.
Really?
But there were some down times.
I thought that thing's been a staple for decades.
Maybe 15 years? I should know. There's a big sign, and I read it all the time. I'm just too busy looking at the picture of me dumping champagne on myself. That's in there too, folks. That's a nice little treasure hunt when you go in a corner pocket. Try to find the picture of me dumping champagne on myself because it's in there, along with the big Braves banner that Bill put up, the World Championship banner. But yeah, man, with I guess where do we want to start? It was actually kind of a newsy last couple of days.
Yeah, we'll talk about Gilbert Edmond later on in the show. That's the defensive end they got out of South Carolina. But let's start off with the Heisman campaign. I think that got the most buzz online, or maybe that's just my bias in terms of what I went out looking and snuffing around for. Because we talked about it either on the drive down to Orlando, myself and Ira. I thought we brought up on the podcast. Maybe even when Tom was on with us, and we did a Tuesdays with Tom, where I was like, you go into next year, you like what you have with Jordan Travis. Would you consider like a Heisman campaign, like a Heisman push? Not necessarily Joey Harrington on the side of a skyscraper in Manhattan, but like, do you want to maybe, kind of rally around a really proven commodity that's a really important part of being a championship team? And, we look back on what happened with Christian Ponder 13 years ago now. We're like, well, that didn't work out all that great. I don't think it was met with resounding approval by the rank and file, and I get the trepidation. Especially, my only hang-up, Corey, is, man, you start off with LSU. That's a lot of pressure on that one, because if you lose that one, then that whole entire thing goes sideways, even though you can still control your own destiny and still win your conference and still even sneak into the playoff. But like in terms of a Heisman, you'll have a lot of egg on your face, so I don't like it in that regard. But, man, I feel really good about this kid at quarterback. I feel really good about all the pieces around him. And surely, man, you need to kind of help, create some buzz around you, although maybe you don't because of all these other preseason polls that are coming in. But I was okay with it, but I understand the trepidation. Where are you at on the spectrum?
I mean, we talked about it on headlines a little bit. It's not really a big deal either way, right? My whole point is, what's the point of it? What are you trying to do? Doesn't Jordan Travis right now, according to Caesars, have the second best odds or third best odds of anyone in the country to win the Heisman? I think he's 10-1.
Uh-huh.
So what? I would get it if you're at UTEP or Rice, but at Florida State with a guy of that caliber who's that good, I don't know that you need. What do you need a website for? It's not 2010. People know his name. They've seen him win a bunch of games and do crazy things. They get watched a lot. Jordan Travis is a household name, and to me, it's just
See, I don't think he is. So I think that's why this is a good thing.
Oh, I mean, but even if he wasn't, what kind of traffic are we expecting?
Right.
Are non-Florida State fans going to go to it?
I think it'll go kind of viral-ish. I think because,
Maybe.
The Florida State fans know who this kid is. I think you need to kind of put the country on notice. And I get it, man. You know what? You're going to tweet out a link to a website, and,
right.
It's not the coolest thing in the world. I mean, you probably could have done some sort of guerrilla marketing that might have been a little bit more of a buzz. But, yeah, again, man, I think people are sleeping on this program. They know what Florida State has been.
I don't know, man. You're seeing these too early polls, right?
Yeah, it's a kind of juxtaposition of the fact I think the national writers are recognizing it, but I don't think fans are. And I guess you'd rather have the hearts and minds of the writers than the fans. But I think this is kind of a way to announce to recruits, hey, we'll market you. There's some really special things going on here. This guy will develop you a quarterback. This guy will give you a good offensive line around you. The offensive coordinator, that is. So, but to your point, man, I do lean in your direction of what do you ultimately want to accomplish from this? But I think there's some value in giving this kid some. Not even so much like to give Jordan something he deserves, but man, get this. strike while the iron's hot, man. Try to get as many boosters on board. Try to get those casual fans really behind this team because I think it's going to be a really pivotal season, man. I don't know if it's not all or nothing, but it's a really, really important season.
Oh, absolutely. And he's a very important player, and he's a great player, and by all means, do what you can. In 2023, a Heisman campaign is just they're non-existent, man. I mean, did Max Duggan? What was TCU doing for him?
Well, he was a backup going into the season.
Correct. And then he finishes second.
Yeah.
To Caleb Williams, who wasn't even at USC at this time last year. And I don't think they pushed him. They just don't do much. Like, winning games and playing well is what win you the Heisman. This is not the 80s or the 90s when you're trying to send stuff to the reporter at the Chicago Tribune that has a vote. Everybody knows if you're good enough, they're gonna, especially at a place like Florida State, if you're winning and you're good. So that was, again, it's not a big deal either way. I'm not like bummed out by it. I don't think it's an incredibly bad move or misstep. It's just, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is what's the purpose other than maybe an NIL deal? He's like, hey, I want a website, and you better have a link to my online shop where I can sell some T-shirts and some merchandise. But promote me and promote what I'm trying to do. I get it. It's fine. If that was part of the deal, it's not going to do anything as far as the Heisman. He's got to go perform to win the Heisman. This is nothing but a kind of useless marketing campaign.
So what's the fear? Like, we're putting too much pressure on this kid. You don't want to look.
Yeah, just egg on your face if he goes 13-30 in the opener, and you got an LSU safety intercept him and they're doing a Heisman pose afterwards. Like, I want my own website. I just intercepted J. Trav for Heisman. That's it. But they probably won't even know about it. It's 8 months from now. That's what I'm saying. It's not really that big a deal. So there's not much of a downside. There's just, I don't understand what the upside is because Jordan Travis will be promoted quite a lot. Like we said, he doesn't need a lot of hype. He's got the third best odds of anyone in the country. Who's he tied with? Drake May at 10-1. According to Caesars, I guess, right? And they're both behind Caleb Williams, clearly. So Jordan Travis is coming in next season as one of the big names in the sport. I don't know when you're at Florida State, you need to do something like that. But again, I'm old. It's not the end of the world. Plus, I'm a little scarred from the CP7 for Heisman. I don't remember what they gave us. If they gave us pens or a notebook, they gave us something.
I think they gave you guys a notebook. Didn't that feel like more of a stretch, though? I mean, I don't know if it makes people feel any better because if only one guy's going to be able to win this thing. If it's not your guy, you're going to probably feel silly about it. But I feel much better about Jordan Travis going into 2023. I feel better about the quarterback than I did going into 2010. And I love Christian Ponder. And obviously,
yeah, I think then it was a marketing campaign that made sense. Number one, it was 2010, so the world was different. Twitter wasn't around. I think Facebook had been. I mean, it was around, but nobody was really using it.
Facebook was established in 2010.
Facebook was established, but wasn't it a bunch of? Was it still
it was
college
solid.
Kids?
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't everybody.
Snapchat wasn't a thing. TikTok wasn't a thing. I mean, they're just the world's different now. This just a website doesn't seem like the best way to give him his own J. Trav for Heisman TikTok, which they might be doing. I don't know, or Snapchat or Insta.
Do you think
I know them all, gang? Hinge. Get them a Hinge membership. Is that a thing, Aslan?
That's a dating app, big guy.
Oh, sorry.
Sure. Swipe right on, swipe right.
Swipe right if you think you should win the Heisman. Yeah.
He had to have been involved in this to a certain degree,
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If it was part of the negotiations with his NIL stuff, and again, Florida State's not technically a part of that. That's a collective, a third party, but it might have been bandied about like, hey, and we're going to if you come back, we're going to this is X amount of money, and we're also going to start this kind of website to promote you because we want to get your name out there. I think that my counter to that is his name's already out there now. CP7 Christian Ponder, he had some good games in 2009, but that was a bad team that finished horribly, and he missed the last month. And I don't think he was as known. Clearly, I don't think he was as known, and the team he was on wasn't as good as Jordan Travis coming back in 2023. So to me, that made a little more sense too. Like, get his name out there. He's this good a quarterback. People don't know him. They're not talking about him. Let's try to get his name out there with these little gifts and trinkets we're giving away. I don't know if they had a website or not, but honestly, Aslan, it doesn't really bother me that much. It really doesn't bother me at all. And we probably talked too much about it already. I don't know that it's anything we'll even think about in August. Like I still haven't been to the site. I might not go to the site. Have you been to the site?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, see, so we probably talked about it too much. I don't know how many I don't know if you subscribe? Can you be like does it have a newsletter? I don't know. We should go
write to your congressman or something, yeah. Well, I mean, it just shows where this program is right now. And I think I just saw the reaction online because, again, a lot of people started thinking, all right, everyone's dreaming the big dream right now. And I think, like, this is and it's early, man. Like, these preseason polls are coming out. And I feel for that certain part of Florida State fandom that is really sensitive and hyper-focused on every little thing that's out there. You're like, all right, finally we're starting to kind of get our props, if you will. Like, we're starting to finally get some love in these preseason polls. They see how good we are.
Yeah.
But then it's like, all right, but don't cross over that line. And it feels like for a lot of people that cross over the line, and it's bad karma. And
it's like a look at me. Memories. It's a look at me, look over here. We matter too. And it's like, you want to be like, yeah, we know. Like, you're going to be top 5, top 7 in the country to start next season, and he's going to be on every Heisman list. Like, you don't need it. You don't need to go seeking attention. It is coming. You just, if you'd have just looked at Twitter right after that game and all those too early polls, what ESPN have them at 4?
Yes.
Yeah, Florida State's 4th in the country, and ESPN's way too early, and it's certainly not official. But when you look at what Florida State has coming back and what they've added, they are going to be a chic pick to be a top 5 team, to be a playoff contender. Maybe some will pick them to win the national championship. I don't know who. I wouldn't go that far, but I certainly think they have a chance to get to the playoff. And all that attention is coming. So I think Florida State fans were almost like, man, you're Florida State. You don't need to go. When you're good, everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
When you have a Heisman-worthy player, everybody knows about it. You don't have to go buy a website domain and broadcast it. They'll come. They'll find you. But again, the downside is negligible. It's just, it's cool. It's something to talk about in early January.
Yeah. Well, otherwise it wouldn't be a show, everybody. So
right, exactly right.
All that
Who
said,
else should get websites, Aslan? Who else should get websites?
I say Jared Verse, like, Jared, man, you're coming back. Like, shouldn't you have gotten a Heisman campaign, or do we need to start like a Lombardi?
Lombardi would be
you?
good.
Yeah.
Bednarik, isn't that? That's a the defensive end award, right? Or Ted Hendricks, that's the defensive end award. You got Johnny, could be a Blitnikoff.
Yeah.
Website. Yeah, man. Cypress could be Thorpe.
Okay.
There's a lot of possibilities, man.
So all that said, do we like 10-1? Do we like the 10-1 odds on Jordan? Is that a good play? I know we're not on my bookie part of the show, but
now look, that was a bit surprising to me when I saw that. I was like, because he had a very good year. We all saw him, but I was wondering, all right, as you pointed out, who really paid attention to Florida State after they lost those 3 games in October? Like, who was really paying? Like, it was the only game on that Friday night against Florida, and it was the only game on against Oklahoma. So that really helped.
Good point.
But man, are people really watching? Are they really taking note? And clearly they are. Like, Caesars doesn't screw around with that kind of stuff. They're not in the business of losing money. They do want bets. And Florida State obviously elicits a lot of bets. But that when I saw that, I'm like, okay, man, they do recognize what's going on here, because he's going to be on a good team. He is a dynamic, fun player to watch. He's the quarterback. It makes sense that he would be top 5-ish. Plus, who's coming back that you're like, absolutely
Drake May. Come on.
I mean, there's Drake May and there's Caleb Williams.
And they're not.
They're
going
right
back
there
to
with
back.
them.
And no one, as you point out, no one goes back to back.
They don't typically. And all the big schools, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, they're all breaking in new quarterbacks. So Jordan Travis is, other than Caleb Williams, and I guess Drake May, but I think Jordan's probably more proven at this point and has won, bigger games. Jordan Travis is the most proven commodity in the country at quarterback, not named Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
That's a cool place to be, Florida State fans. So go visit his website.
What is it JTrav for Heisman.com? I should have had it pulled up to let everybody know what it is. I don't like 10-1, man. I think that's not good value, man. I was going to, if it was something like 20, 25-1, I'd have been all over it. But a little bit nervous. It is JTrav for Heisman, and it's spelled out FOR. Just in case you thought they'd do 4 for some reason.
Okay.
I mean, but JTrav, he deserves a better nickname. That's our charge, everybody. Let's come up with a better nickname for this kid than just, first initial, truncated last name,
Yeah, that's how it works these days. Like Johnny Wilson's the Birdman. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I get it. All right, so
I'm looking at it. Honestly, it's kind of like
let's do it together. I'm going.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's kind of like the it's an extension of Seminoles.com. It's his stats. It's not crazy. It's there's a quote from Travis. It talks about, he directed an offense that ranked 7th nationally in yards per play and 10th in yards per game. Only player ranked in the top 10 on FSU's career passing TDs and rushing TDs list. Well, that's kind of cool. One of 4 active players in the country with at least 5,500 passing yards and 1,700 career rushing yards. Led ACC in yards per play. PFF grade, highest among FBS quarterbacks. It's got like a highlight reel, and then it shows where he is in the record books. But
this is a pretty extensive. Yeah, this isn't. They didn't just smack this together overnight. It's
got all his highlight. I mean, it's cool, man. Yeah. It's cool, but it's not like it's not maybe the website I was expecting. It is basically a promotional website or a promotional page for your quarterback, which is really cool. I don't dislike it.
Shows where he ranks against all the other greats.
Yeah.
So he'll bypass Thad Busby for career passing yards. Probably will also bypass DeAndre Francois. He'll get past Busby in touchdown passes and EJ in career touchdown passes. Yeah, he's walking amongst giants in Florida State lore. It's crazy. And his career rush yards are right there too. He's got more rushing yards than Chris Thompson, Dexter Carter.
Yeah,
incredible.
And he's he's 10th in the all-time or 9th all-time in rushing touchdowns. It's pretty nuts.
Well done, Florida State. It looks good. I like it. All right, so how about the too early? Now, we did say ESPN, they're too early poll, but it's really just Mark Schlabach. He works for ESPN. It wasn't like they polled 20 different people over at the Worldwide Leader. It was just Mark Schlabach does this every single year. I think Athlon, we talked about the other day, had him at 6th, but 4th, huh?
4th. In Action.com, Brett McMurphy had him 4th. Okay. I didn't see where Stuart Mandel had him. He's with the Athletic. I know he. I'm looking up right now because he had him. He has him in his top 10. Okay, but I didn't see exactly where he put him.
I mean, if you don't have Florida State in your top 10 going to 2023, you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely, brother.
But
I'm looking. But yeah, no. Let me look at it right now. And I think USA Today had him pretty high.
Oh, that came out too. Golly, I can't keep up with all these. Why don't they space these out a little bit? I guess you want to be.
Well, they're all trying to compete with each other.
I know, but when you're not the first one in, you might as well kind of let it die out, then come on off the top rope.
We should come up with our own. The Warchant too early. Top 25. Let's see. So Stuart Mandel for the Athletic has Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, LSU 4th, Alabama 5th, Penn State 6th, USC 7th, Florida State 8th. So
all right. Yeah.
Either way, man, I don't know that I'd have LSU ahead of Florida State, but hey, good thing is they get to settle it in Orlando in early September. But I was wondering where they would be ranked after, and we'll see, man. We'll see. They'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama will get more votes than them. Probably Michigan too. So I think the best they could be is 5th, but I think they could be 5th going into next year because the hype train's off it's already off. It's gone. It's
left the station.
I was going to say off the rails.
It's left
but that's
the station.
Not. Yeah. It's left the station. Thank you very much. It's hit max speed. What's a train's max speed these days, Aslan? 40 miles an hour? Who knows in this
60
country?
kilometers an hour, yeah. I like to use kilometers when I'm talking about my
in Japan,
trains.
They go 800 miles an hour, but here we can't get them above 50. But either way, so that's already left the station, the hype train. We'll see where they end up being ranked in August, but they will be ranked high. And the LSU and Florida State will be a top 10 matchup. It will be the premier or one of the premier matchups of that first weekend. That's cool, man. And I was just wondering, because we thought there was a chance for them to do something special after this season and everybody that's come back. But it's good that the rest of the country has taken note that, yeah, man, Florida State was close to having a really special season this season. They have a great quarterback. They have a great defensive end, a lot of other really good college football players there mixed in, and they're on the rise, plus a pretty easy schedule. Yeah, this is about where I'd have them. I'd have them somewhere between 4 and 8 next year in the preseason rankings. I think that's deserved, and I don't think it's something that Florida State fans, certainly you hope the team doesn't, but Florida State fans shouldn't shy away from. You have a very good college football team heading into 2023.
Dangerous to bring this up, but like, do you look at Georgia? You know, Stetson and Jordan, I call them a wash maybe. Maybe they have a better offensive line, but I really like Florida State's, I like their skill guys. Like, I like Florida State's receiving core. I like Trey Benson a lot. I know a lot of this obviously falls on Jordan Travis's shoulders, these high, lofty rankings they're getting right now, and I did confirm USA Today does have them at number 4. But, like, do you look at it at the way Georgia dismantled TCU the other night and think, like, man, Florida State on par offensively with Georgia, or no? Or is that not? I mean, I know that's the barometer we need to be using in this day and age of Georgia's offense, but they are the 2-time defending national champions, and they just put 65 or whatever it was up in the national title game. Like, watching that game, I'm like, I don't see anything on that side of the ball. Maybe some bigger, more physical offensive linemen, but in terms of skill position guys, I don't see like a huge drop off. I don't have McCloskey envy, but they don't have Johnny
Who's
Wilson
McCloskey?
envy either.
Oh, you mean McConkey?
McConkey, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
The Bears are on my
lad
mind.
McConkey.
The Bears got the number 1 pick for the first time since like the 40s. Sorry.
Yeah, and that guy was a bust. I looked him up because I have some friends that are Bears fans. Yeah. That guy rushed for like 190 yards in his career. He was an Oklahoma running back. He was the number 1 pick of like the 1947 draft, and then ended up working for a Mutual of Omaha. And had a good life. Died in 2010, so he lived a long life, but he just was not good in the NFL. So hopefully the Bears get it better than they did back in 47. Yeah, man. Look, man. When Georgia's offense was not spectacular this year, they had moments, sure, but they didn't do anything more to Florida than Florida State did. They played 2 common opponents in Florida and Georgia Tech, and Florida State's offense did better against both of them than Georgia's did. Now that said, I wouldn't have picked Florida State to win on Monday night. With Georgia playing like that, I think Georgia beats anybody in the country pretty comfortably. But I thought TCU just crapped the bed, man. Max Duggan looked terrible. They looked terrible. The game plan was bizarre. I watched that Georgia team play a lot. They are not that good. They're good. They deserve the national championship, clearly. They're not that good. And TCU isn't that bad. Like, that was just nutty. But I would say, yeah, I think the more prescient question is, whose offense would you rather have going into 2023? And, man, I think the answer is Florida State. Having your quarterback is such a huge deal, man. Georgia probably is going to have a very good offense again. But you don't know for sure, do you? Because you don't know what Beck is. He hasn't proven a darn thing. He hasn't thrown a meaningful pass in his career.
Is it him, or is it the Vandegrift kid?
That
Brock
kid,
Vandegrift.
too. Yeah, they're going to have a quarterback competition. So you don't even know who's going to be the quarterback. Well, you know who Florida State's quarterback is going to be. He's got his own Heisman page, his own Heisman website. I just think you can't undervalue how important that is to have a quarterback that is really good. That is such a luxury, man. And so going in, and I think Florida State and Georgia's offenses were probably a wash. Georgia's offensive line has clearly got better players on it, but I don't know that you would say it performed better.
Right.
I just think that Georgia's offensive line would block Michigan's defensive line better than Florida State's would for 60 minutes. They're just better players. But your offensive line is going to be better this year than it was last year. You're going to have at least one NFL tight end. All your receivers are back. You've got an NFL running back, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know. You've got a Heisman candidate quarterback. This Florida State offense is going to be as good, in my opinion, if it stays healthy, as this Georgia offense was this year. Georgia scored 16 against Kentucky. They scored 2 touchdowns against Missouri.
What was the score at halftime against Tech?
They were up 10-7 against Georgia Tech. You guys all remember that Georgia Tech team, right? The one that Florida State should have won by 70 points if they don't fumble at the 1 and do some other crazy stuff in the first half and put up 650 yards against them. Georgia was beating that team 10-7 in the third quarter. That Georgia Tech team that was just playing out the string, had nothing to play for. At home in Athens. So, I think when you look at what he has built on this offense and what you have coming in, it is a championship offense. There's no question. It is a championship caliber offense. And watching that game on Monday night, Florida State would have lost to Georgia, but man, it would have been a game in the third or fourth quarter because they would have put real pressure on that team because they can move the ball and score. And they have an electric, dynamic quarterback that wouldn't have maybe he would, man. I shouldn't give Max too. I mean, he was good against Michigan, I guess, but I was not overly impressed with Duggan in the Big 12 championship game. He made some throws and some runs in that game, but he wasn't great. I didn't think he was great against Michigan for what he had been. I thought, again, they had guys run open and free, and he hit them. That's fine. And then he just basically soiled himself against Georgia. First three throws, terrible throw. First three plays, sorry, terrible throw. And then on his own read, he keeps it when he should have handed off, and he gets tackled for a 6-yard loss. It's like he just wasn't that guy. Georgia gave up 500 yards to LSU. Ohio State went up and down the field. Like, Florida State can play with Georgia. I don't think I don't know that it can beat. It couldn't have beaten this Georgia team probably, but this isn't the Georgia team you're worried about. It's next year's Georgia team. It's breaking in a new quarterback that doesn't have Jalen Carter or a first-round pick at corner. So, I just think what the portal has done and what retention collectives have done has narrowed the gap in talent acquisition and just talent on the roster. You're going to have grown men on this football team. And they played a ton of reps. They played a ton of real college football. And I brought this up on headlines. Who's going to have more of an impact this next season in college football? The kid, when we got to bring him up. I just forgot his name. The South Carolina kid that just transferred in.
Oh, my guy. Gilbert Edmond.
Gilbert Edmond or Marvin Jones Jr.?
I don't like that comparison. How about Gilbert Edmond versus the Bain kid down in Miami? Because he'll be a redshirt freshman, Marvin Jones Jr. He might be able to have some
maybe
sort
he'll
of
be
flair.
something. Yeah, I mean, maybe. You didn't get on the field at all, and they'll play freshmen if you can play. Or Jared Verse versus anybody.
Right.
Retaining Jared Verse
yeah.
is a bigger deal than signing any 5-star defensive end. Plus, you got this kid that can play. And he can play. He's not Jared Verse. He's not Jermaine Johnson. He's not a first-round pick. But he has quality depth at a position that needs quality depth. So and that's the beauty of the portal, man. You get guys ready-made, ready to play. Meanwhile, Georgia, I mean, nobody's feeling sorry for him. They got to wait to see if Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be awesome. Yeah. But he certainly wasn't ready to play as a freshman. He might be ready as a redshirt freshman. Meanwhile, you got guys that are ready to play. So the theory being that, yes, Marvin Jones Jr., when he's a sophomore redshirt junior, might be awesome, might be an NFL-ready top 30, top 50 pick. But will he be anywhere close to what Jared Verse will be this year or Patrick Payton? Probably not. So, that's how you can compete with them. You get older guys that are 2 years older, 2 years stronger, and you hope that maybe not the talent that and Jared Verse isn't a good example because he's as talented as anyone. But Marvin Jones Jr., before those guys blossom into greatness, they have to go up against Robert Scott, who's a fourth-year player. I don't know. I think that the portal in retention has evened it out where Alabama and Georgia, yeah, you've got really great players. You've got awesome players. But these other schools can compete. And I know I'm saying it on the heels of a 65-7 throttling that was just a joke. It was ridiculous how easy that was. But I'm telling you because I watched Georgia all season. They were not some unbeatable juggernaut. They had close games. They beat Kentucky 16-6. Like we said, they were up on Georgia Tech 10-7 in the third quarter. They almost lost to Missouri. Yeah. They didn't even blow out Kent State. They had some struggles. They were not infallible. And I think it's going to be more and more parity as we go on, as long as the portal is like this, which is cool. It gives other teams a chance.
We'll talk more about that, but enough talking about Caesars. I've been sitting here stalling, trying to find their odds. I can't even get on their website. Can't find their sportsbook. It's that tough. You know, it's not tough going over to mybookie.ag and checking out their odds. It's a new year, and maybe you want to bet to win some extra money, or maybe you want to bet just to make things interesting. But you can do it all, no matter your inclination, over at mybookie.ag when you use the promo code WARCHANT. That will also give you an instant cash deposit bonus right into your account. You can get your bets in, get your winnings made, and then pull it right out and put it in your pocket. It's that easy when you use mybookie.ag. Let's swerve quickly, Corey. Okay. Super Bowl 57 odds. I like the Bucs at 26-1 or the Bengals at 8-1. Those are my value picks. Hart wants to go with the Niners, but I don't think Brock Purdy's going to make it through 4 games or whatever he's got to do to win the entire Super Bowl.
What are the 49ers odds?
Of like 5.5. They're plus 520.
Yeah, man, because they're loaded. They're good.
Yeah, their defense is awesome.
But yeah, you're right. Rookie quarterback. Yeah, man, the Bucs I guess are a good value because they get a home game, right?
Yep.
But I don't know.
But who else in the NFC? You got to beat Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, and Brock Purdy, and Geno Smith. Like, those are the quarterbacks in the NFC.
Well, Jalen, but that Eagles team is good. I think the Eagles and the 49ers are the two best teams. But, yeah, man, I guess for the value of a 26-1,
yeah,
you put $100 on that bad boy, you win $2,600. Come on now.
And I like
just
Joe
throwing
Burrow.
that out there. Not a bad idea, Aslan.
Check it out, mybookie.ag. Use that promo code WARCHANT. All right, Corey, here's the part where I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, which I don't like doing on the show. But I've been a proponent. I'm not an expansionist, but I am I'm a portal believer. I really do believe that you can build a contender in the portal. I think we're seeing it right now with Florida State, again, what they've been able to compile on this roster and what they're going to have going into 2023, and it's being noticed by all these other national writers. But you do look at the guys like the Jalen Carters, like these special dudes.
Yeah, that is such he is a unicorn, man, and he's going to be the number one he's going to be the number one prospect in the draft.
No.
Like nobody has that guy.
I know, but last year they had the Walker guy, right? Wasn't he the number one overall pick?
Yeah, and it's crazy, man. Think about that defense last year. That's a great point. Think about that defense last year. It had those guys. I think it had 9 guys drafted, 5 in the first round. And I thought the whole year, I even said it on the show, that I thought Jalen Carter was the best out of all of them.
You did.
He was incredible last year. He didn't play as much this year because he was banged up. But you see what kind of. I mean, he's just a freak. But if what's his name? Who's the receiver for Alabama that got Jamison Williams?
Correct. Yeah.
If he doesn't get hurt last year, there's a chance Georgia doesn't beat them. Like Alabama.
If Marvin Jones Jr. if Marvin Jones or Marvin Harrison Jr. rather doesn't get a concussion, who knows what happens with Ohio State? Yeah, but
it is hard even with all that talent, all that I mean, it was probably the most talented defense in the history of the sport. When you look at draft picks and you include Jalen Carter on that and Kaylee Ringo, they're both first-round picks this year. You're talking about at least 7 first-round picks on one defense. I mean, get out of here. And that's how hard – and Kirby Smart is a great coach. That's how hard defense is now. When you're going up against a great quarterback with receivers, Alabama put 40 on them last year and might have put 40 on them again if they had receivers that weren't hurt. Yeah. They ran out of receivers. Now, they had great receivers too and an all-time quarterback, but that's how hard it is to play defense anymore. But go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead with Jalen.
That's fine. Can you have that special level? I mean, we talked about that they've got some special pieces now. Jared's a special player. Jordan's a special player. But, man, can you build a team that can go 13 games, conference championship, and then, within 2 weeks playing a playoff, a top 4 team, and then playing for a national title? Can you do it without having those kind of unicorn players? You don't get unicorn guys in the portal, it feels like. Or is Jared Verse like a unicorn? I just saw the way that Georgia is like recruiting, and part of me, I still believe you can do it with the portal. I never said that you can do it exclusively with the portal. You still need to recruit well in high school, but I just don't think it's nearly as important as we've made it to be. But when I think about these guys that Georgia has had, these high-level draft picks, they're all homegrown dudes. And it's like maybe there is something to just, I don't know, maybe the numbers lining up to where if you recruit these kids in high school, like you've got that 3-year window, and if you get 80% of them to hit in those 2-year windows, you can win a national championship. Because, like, Florida State, man, 2023, I don't want to say all in, but it's close. Like, that Fisk kid, you only have him for one more year. Fabian's not coming back in 24. Jared Verse probably not coming back in 24. Jordan Travis can't come back in 24. You've got a lot of pieces there. Like, this is kind of your window. This is everything hitting right when it comes to building it through the portal. Like, you have a smaller window, it feels like, than maybe a Georgia or an Alabama did in years past because they recruited homegrown and did it grassroots.
Yes, correct. But the beauty is the portal's not going away. I think the comparison I would make is you got to be kind of like Billy Beane and Moneyball. You're not recruiting at that level. Nobody does. Georgia and Alabama just recruit at a different level than everybody else. I mean, an A&M occasionally will sprinkle in something, but on the high school ranks, you're not recruiting at that level, so you've got to make it up on the other end if you want to compete with them. And quite frankly, it's awesome. I want them to compete with Georgia. I want them to compete with Alabama. Right now, go beat Wake Forest. You know, we're worried, and I think the reason we're talking about Georgia so much, and we did it on headlines too, is because because of all these too early preseason rankings, and Florida State's right amongst them. It's Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State. Like, those are the 5 that are in there, and most all of them. LSU sprinkled in there too, but they're being mentioned with the big boys now, so it's natural to compare them to the big boys. First things first, knock off Wake Forest, and I think you're certainly there. You built a roster that should beat Wake Forest handily. We'll see, especially now they don't have their quarterback, but who knows? It's in Snuggy Hill, never an easy place to play. But as you move forward, if you can't recruit, and who can? Who recruits the 5 stars that Georgia and Alabama do? Nobody. So if you know you can't recruit like that, well, this is how you make it up on the other end. You find, I don't know, you can exploit the system. And I think Norvell has done an unbelievable job in that. Where number one,
you're removing all the risk. There's no risk in this because you know what these guys are.
Well, you know that, but you're getting them ready-made. They're ready to contribute right away. You don't have to wait 2 years, because it would have been awesome if 2021, or let's say last year, 2022's class, Norvell signed the number 4 class in the country. High school recruiting. Everybody had done cartwheels and high-fived, and oh, look, he can recruit at the elite level. Florida State's coming back. Well, that wouldn't have helped much this past year. Yeah, Travis Hunter would have played. That would have helped. But who else? I mean, true freshmen don't help you win championships. Or they don't lead you to championships. Let me put it that way. Jalen Ramsey helped you win a championship. He wasn't the reason you won it, though. It's the older guys. It's redshirt sophomores or juniors that win you championships. Sometimes you don't have that time to wait. And Norvell has just done a great job because he can't recruit the 5. And the ones that can help immediately aren't right now coming to Florida State. They go to Alabama and Georgia. It's just or Ohio State. That's just the nature of the beast, man. They get the ready-made 5-star, super-duper can't-miss kids. Florida State does not from the high school ranks. But you combat that with knocking it out of the park in the transfer portal, and I think that's the great equalizer. And 4 years ago, think about that championship game, Aslan, between Alabama and Georgia when Tua came in.
Yeah, overtime.
We saw Florida State play Alabama that year, that Florida State team.
Yeah.
Now imagine that next year, 18. That same floor, or 19, or 20, any of those Florida State teams lining up against Alabama or Georgia, they would have lost all those games by 50 points. If they could not compete, they had no chance against those teams, none. Now, if Florida State's playing Alabama or Georgia in 2023, yeah, they'll be an underdog, but you don't go into that game thinking they have no chance, and you just hope they don't get blown out. Hope you don't lose by 40. They can compete now with the best teams in the country. Not saying they can beat them. Certainly couldn't beat them consistently if they played them 12 times, but they can compete with them. That's what the portal has done, and that's what the great equalizer is. I do think you're right. I don't know that the portal is ever going to be the place where you go get the Jalen Carters of the world. Those guys have a tendency to stick. Those schools that recruited them and signed them make it a point that they stay there. But Jalen Carter's backup's probably pretty darn good too. And he could probably play in the league too. And he can help you win a lot of football games, and that's what the portal has opened up. I was thinking about that too with Mims, Amarius Mims, R.I.P.
Yeah, sweet prince.
Like he was a backup this for most of this season. And then they lost a starter. He comes in. He played a lot in the championship game, and now he's probably slated to be a starter next year. That's what Georgia and Alabama have to compete with now, though. He was a half inch away from not even being on the roster. Yeah. And he would have been at Florida State, obviously paving the way for Trey Benson to run for 1,800 yards instead of 1,000. But that's what I think. That's where you can. That's how you get composed now when it comes to those 3-4 schools. Is their backups, if they're not happy, if they're there for a year or two and they aren't playing and they see the writing on the wall that they're being recruited over, they really have to fight for scraps on this awesome team. They might not stick around like they used to. They're going to go somewhere else. I mean, I looked at TCU's because Florida State is the number 2 class, has the number 2 portal class in the country now behind I don't know who they're behind, Michigan maybe?
UCLA.
Oh, yeah, that's right, UCLA. Yeah. According to On3. And TCU is 5th. TCU is the only team that has a higher average player ranking than Florida State. Now, they only have 5 commitments, and Florida State has 10, so that's why Florida State's second. But 3 of TCU's 5 guys are Alabama dudes. That wasn't the case 4 years ago. They stuck it out, and they might play when they're a junior. Well, now if they're not playing, all right, man, I only get 1 college experience. I'm going to go play. I want carries, or I want to be on the field. And that's what Alabama and Georgia will have to combat. The Jalen Carters of the world are set. They're not going anywhere. They're there. Brock Bowers probably going to stay at Georgia, I think, for this last season. But the third string tight end, who might be really good too, he might want to go somewhere else. That's the beauty of the portal now, and that's what. But the point being, that's what Norvell is really, really utilized. I mean, to better than anyone in the country. I mean, it is crazy, Aslan. We are talking about a team that might be preseason top 5. And think about what we were talking about this team 2 years ago.
Yeah, they were 0-4, and he went into this season coaching for his job. I think to a certain degree, man. I don't know if that's really a thing to a certain degree, but listen, man. If they lose to LSU and couldn't find a way to pull it out in Louisville, like what do you think about this team? But they did find ways to win those games. They finished the season with 10 wins, and they did it on the back of a lot of these guys they brought in quick fixes that are long-lasting fixes now. Because Jared Verse is coming back, and Fabian Lovett's actually going to be a player
you get
for
2 years of Verse.
Yeah.
You get at least 2 years of Johnny Wilson. You get 2 years of Micah Pittman. At least 2 years of Trey Benson. Man, what a great portal run that was.
Yeah, is it 4 years of Fabian? Did Fabian come here in 2020? I feel like he did.
I think I think this is at least 3 years. It might be 4 years of Fabian. I feel like he's been here for a minute.
And just the last thing on that, again, man, I think things are lining up so good for Florida State. My only concern is, I really like Patrick Payton, right? I wish they had 3-4 more Patrick Paytons on defense that whenever
guys that you want to see develop into stars. I get you. I agree with you because you are thinking not just about 2023 when it looks like everything is aligned and you've got yourself a top 5 team, but do you have a top 5 program? And when you lose all that talent from next year, can you just go in the portal and replace it all? No. So you've got to have some of these you've got to have hit on some of these high school guys, some of these redshirt freshman defensive linemen. Yeah. They have to be able to play. Linebackers, DBs, like these guys have to be able to play. And what are you going to do at quarterback? That's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I know we've already talked a lot. Yeah, that's one guy that I'm still waiting to see some tweet or post.
Tate?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is very important to the 2023 football team. And you guys know that we watch practice. You guys know that we're pretty honest in our assessments, and we were pretty darn good throughout last spring and then through August too, even though we were doubted at times. We kind of know what we're talking about, not because we're brilliant. We just see it. It doesn't take Bill Walsh to see who can play. I didn't go with Stevie Wonder. I'm done with the blind references. I went with a dead former NFL coach. But I am not. If Tate Rodemaker decides here in the next week or after spring that he wants to go somewhere else, that's a big loss because I'm not convinced of anybody else on the roster that can play at this level. That if something happens to Jordan Travis, that you can still go have a nice season.
Well, it's only A.J. Duffy at this point. I mean, Geno English is gone, and then you're bringing in Brock Glenn.
But then you have Brock Glenn.
And A.J. Duffy signed with Battle's End.
I know.
And Tate Rodemaker
has not.
Look, man,
Rodemaker, again, if you lose Jordan Travis, the season isn't going to end the way you wanted it to. We all get that. But Rodemaker can still do some things with these weapons. Mm-hmm. I don't know about anybody else on the roster. Let's just say that. I just don't. And I watch a lot of practice. Nobody's story is written when they're a true freshman quarterback. Everybody struggles. But until I see something different, Tate Rodemaker needs to be a vital part of next year's team. But it's easy for me to say. It's not my college career, is it? He might want to go somewhere and actually throw passes instead of cheer on Jordan Travis.
I do wonder how pivotal spring will be with him. Is that kind of what is being factored in here? Is that if he plays really well in spring, or maybe A.J. Duffy does not play very well this spring, then he comes to you and says, yeah, I will stay, but I want X, Y, and Z. And maybe that's why you've held off on not tendering him a NIL deal with your collective.
I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. I don't know who's in charge of it. I don't know who tenders what's asked for, what the going rate for a backup quarterback that you hope never plays is. I just know that to me, he's pretty important. He's an important piece if you still want to have, if something, unforeseen or unwanted happens to your starting quarterback, that you can still go have a nice season. Tate Rodemaker's a piece of that. Maybe you go take South Carolina's backup quarterback. That's just what you do. You just go raid that school. I've been trying to figure out what does Norvell have against Beamer? Did they go up against each other? Did they play against each other somehow early in their careers, or did he lose a recruiting battle and Beamer talked smack to him? He goes after South Carolina like they slapped his mama or something. It does not make sense.
I mean, if you're Shane Beamer, you have to do something here. You have to, lay the gauntlet down, do a needling tweet, something, man. Have some pride. He just keeps taking all these guys away from you. Like really good players, Jamie Robinson, Kier Thomas, Jaheim Bell. And then on Tuesday they added Edge, Gilbert Edmond. No T, just, I don't know if it's Gilbert maybe, but Gilbert Edmond, we'll call him. Started 10 games last year for South Carolina. He's been there since 2020. Everybody redshirted 2020, so I think that means he's got 3 years left he could still play. Graded out not all that awesome, 59.4 overall defensively. Against the run, 63. His pass rush was 60, so do the math on that, kids. You average 63.
Yeah, but he's to say he's a depth piece.
Well. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But to say he's a depth piece, I'm not trying to, and he's not a special player. And again, I'm not trying to be dismissive there. They're not all going to be special, but you need guys that can play. And I love you to death, Leonard Warner, but you need better than Leonard Warner at defensive end as a backup defensive end if you're really trying to win some things. Yeah. This guy can go make plays. You are going to have now at least 4 defensive ends that have played a ton of football with Verse and McClendon, Peyton, and this kid.
Edmond, yeah.
Edmond. That's 4 guys that have played a ton of football that in one played in the SEC, the other 3 have done some things in the ACC. Like this is Power 5 big boy football. They played a lot of it. Coupled with what you have at defensive tackle, man, that's a lot of dudes on your defensive line. A lot of guys that can play and not just be out there, but make plays. And the competition that creates in practice, man, is such a big deal. Like Darren McClendon or Patrick Payton, they're not just guaranteed of Jared Verse is, but that other side, there's a lot of competition for those reps and those snaps. And that should make them better. You get and they might not be done. There's other defensive ends out there that they're still going after. So that to me, man, what it does in practice, it's what made Florida State so incredible in the 90s. Thank God the portal wasn't around during the dynasty. Because you think all those quarterbacks would have just waited 4 years to play? Yeah. Come on now. But that's what made those teams so great is that the competition just to get on the field was through the roof. Like they had great players that barely played, especially on the defensive line. Now they would play 12 or 15 snaps. Corey Simon didn't start one year and he was an All-American. That's the kind of depth that they had, and that's what I think they're going to have on the defensive line. Not that kind of depth where Corey, you have a backup being an All-American, but you have a rotation of 8 dudes that can all play. And if they can't play, they wouldn't be on the field. Like Malcolm Ray, you want to play in 2023, you got to be better, buddy. Because not only are they bringing in better players from the portal, these young guys are coming up, and you got to hold them off. And that's how you build programs, man. But like to your point, we don't know what these young guys are yet. And you just wish you had more superstars in the making. And maybe they do, and we'll see it in 2023. Hopefully they have enough games where they're up by 30 or 40 points. They can get young guys a lot of experience. Or they're so good they can let the young guys play with the first team and see what you have. Again, they got to do that in the 90s too. That was a luxury. So, but right now, the way this program is built, especially on the defensive line and the offensive line for that matter, there are a ton of bodies and a ton of dudes that have played a lot of football, and that's how you build programs, and that's how you build, championship caliber football teams.
Yeah, for what it's worth, he graded out at 59.4. Derek McClendon graded out at 67. So that kind of gives you maybe an idea of where you're at with it. But, we've seen guys that graded weird or however you want to, whatever adjective you want to use, and then they come to Florida State and then end up being difference makers. So
yeah,
we don't want to put a lot of stock on that. But he's listed at 6'5", 250.
Like those measurables, yeah.
Yeah, he's from Fort Pierce, which we always like.
One of our favorite stops on the Turnpike.
Yeah. And then let's see here. Last year, he had a total of 39 tackles, 9 TFLs, 2 sacks. Let's see how many pressures he had. 21 total pressures, according to
I like that. That's a good number, too. The 21 pressures is nice. The 9 tackles for loss, that's pretty good production. That's at least McClendon-esque production. And again, McClendon's a solid player. You need some solid to go along with your spectacular. You already got one spectacular defensive end. Maybe Patrick Payton is number 2. You need some solid behind those and not average. And I think you played across the defensive line this year when you lost some guys to injury or whatnot, or just getting them rest. You had some average that you threw in there. I don't think there's going to be a lot of average. I mean, you're going to have Daryl Jackson as a backup probably.
No, I think he would start beside Fabian. We got Fisk.
You don't think Fisk is going to?
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what. But either way, they're going to play a lot. I know. And Josh Farmer is going to be good.
Yeah.
Tafasi, Daniel Lyons, they might end up being really good. They're going to have to struggle to get on the field. That's a good place to be, man. When 2 years ago, your linebackers were Steven Dix and DJ Lundy against Notre Dame. And now here you are with the guys like that being backups.
Or Michael Langston was talking about probably linebacker and safety are 2 things they're still after in the portal. So they're not done. Stay connected to warchant.com for that. We'll have a live recruiting chat at 6 o'clock. Maybe we'll have some more intel, some nuggets that we can share with you folks at that point.
Don't forget also tonight at 9 o'clock, Baba Miller makes his Florida State debut.
There we go.
Against at Wake Forest. Love these 9 o'clock tips. That's what everybody wants. But, he makes his debut at Wake Forest. I haven't looked at the spread. I assume Florida State is an underdog, but still, and he's not going to come in and score 30, but get his sea legs under him. Let's just see what he looks like, how he performs in that environment, and finally getting out there and able to play with his teammates.
11.5 points over under on Baba.
Under.
Okay.
But I think he makes a difference.
Okay.
He can switch. He's a tall guy that can switch. They can play in the perimeter. I think he can handle the ball. He's going to make some mistakes because, again, he has not played this level of basketball. These first 16 games were supposed to get him acclimated, but he didn't get that. So he's still got to get acclimated, but I'm just interested to see what kind of impact he has and how he adjusts to the because by this time next month, he should be well adjusted to the college game.
I should have mentioned this probably closer when we were talking about rankings, but Florida State did finish the year ranked 11th in the AP poll, and Trayshawn Ward has officially committed to Kansas State.
There you go, T. Ward. Nice, man. Yeah, man. Go be all Big 12. 11, I was thinking about it because I was like, man, they ranked them behind Utah. I thought they'd go ahead of Utah. But, I mean, Florida State's ranked ahead of Clemson, and they have the same record, and Clemson won. So rankings are rankings. But I was hoping that Florida State would be ahead of Utah because Utah lost the bowl game. But then I also remembered that they lost their quarterback like halfway through that game, right?
He's coming back. He's running it back, so hopefully he beats the Gators in Salt Lake. He plays better at Salt Lake, so don't screw this one.
Yeah, I'm still mad. I'm still mad, furious actually about that throw in the swamp. But either way, so 11th in the country. That's cool, man. I don't think they did the coaches poll yet, did they?
I have not seen the coaches poll drop.
So maybe the Noles, by the time you listen to this, it's dropped, and the Noles are 10th in the coaches poll. Either way, great season. Well, good season, very good season. Hopefully leading to great this season coming up.
There it is, 10th. 10th in the coaches. They're ahead of Utah. And
When did that
Clemson.
drop?
I don't know. I don't see the timestamp on it, but it does show that TCU's 13-2, so it's updated.
Where does that have TCU ranked?
Second.
And Georgia's 1. Who's third?
Michigan.
So Florida State finished 10th.
10th, yeah.
Yeah, man, the coaches poll doesn't get any love, does it? Like, nobody tweeted at all about that. Like, that should count. They're 10. So you got a top 10 team, folks. You got to cheer for a top 10 team this season. That's fun.
Yeah, and Mike Norvell doesn't even have a vote in the coaches poll. So it's not like he was able to stack the deck. This was a true panel of his peers. I don't think even I don't see old Bill Napier. No, yeah, Billy Napier's got a vote. That ain't cool.
Right. Well,
Satterfield's got a vote. All right, I'm done looking at all the votes.
all right. Good. Smart.
We'll have a thread up here later on Wednesday. Yeah, later on today for Renegade Express. Probably late evening because then we'll record it Thursday for your Friday program. Don't forget, live show, 6 o'clock, Michael Langston, YouTube. It's totally free. Check it out. And then the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. Corey, we almost went an hour. I'm like, it'll be a quick one. Sorry.
Yeah, you were wrong. You lied. I got to go eat my salad now. That's what I do now, kids. I work out and eat salads. What's going on?
But you look great, though. You look great.
Hey, thanks, man. I think I'm going with the glasses full time.
Okay, good.
I think I'm going with the glasses. I've adjusted enough to them that I think I'm going to go with them full time and just beat all the women off with a stick.
Oh, okay.
And men too. I mean, it doesn't matter.
He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.